harmed. Escobar, a ruthless killer, escaped from his own luxury prison when authorities tried to transfer him to another jail. NBC's David Bloom is in Medellin.
Hundreds of army troops scour.
This is the story of the narco kingpin, Pablo Escobar. He is a world-renowned narco trafficker, worth over $30 billion and one of the richest criminals to ever walk this earth. In 1991, Pablo Escobar surrendered to the Colombian government to avoid capture by the United States and orchestrated his own prison, La Cartel. He created a fortress. And on this episode of The Big Escape, we dive into that fortress and how he pulled off the biggest escape of all time. This is the story of Pablo Escobar. Pablo Escobar remains a polarizing figure. On one hand, he was sort of a Robin Hood of Colombia, who supported the poor by sponsoring charity projects and soccer clubs, and his story has made intriguing material for Hollywood projects. On the other hand, he was a crime lord who trafficked narcotics, kidnapped people, and caused thousands of deaths throughout Colombia. We know when you think about prison, you probably think barbed wires, aggressive cigars, and mush for lunch. However, Pablo Escobar prison was nothing like that. He basically kept the same amenities he experienced in the free world, minus the zoo and the cars, and for reasons still unknown, people in his prison called the place La Cartel. Narco fans got a good glimpse into La Cartel in season 2 of his Netflix hit TV show. However, it didn't stay for that long. After Pablo escaped, it ironically became home to the Hermetic monks, religious pilgrims, and low-income senior citizens. But before the property could be relocated to the Holy and Variable, it was a war zone for Pablo and the Colombian government during his brilliant escape. Pablo constructed the cartel to be a fortress, and we're not just talking about the building itself. We're talking about every possible angle to make sure he have an upper hand over your enemies, just in case. What's even more surprising through this is that the Colombian government agreed to every bit of it. Pablo negotiated a huge plot of land that he could use to build himself a prison. Using his own funds, he contacted the people who built prisons in Colombia and handpicked them to do the job. And it was great because the location gave rise to thick layers of fog, which would make him nearly invisible to aerial attacks. He also insisted on building the prison on a steep hill. This created an angle advantage for assaults and made it easier to spot enemies advancing. He also negotiated and built in plane to keep his rivals at bay. The only people allowed near the building were the Colombian National Police, and even they had to remain at least 12 miles away from Pablo's prison at all times. To top it all off, Pablo Escobar had a series of machine guns and rifles buried on the premises in a place of easy access. Pablo knew he was in a position of power when he agreed to surrender himself to the government. Because of this, he milked his privilege for everything it was worth. Pablo Escobar prison housed a number of people: other drug lords, serial killers, politicians, professional soccer players, prostitutes, and beauty pageant queens. They all knew Pablo was the king. He footed the bill for the Menage a Trois, the bar, a disco room that also acted as a wedding reception hall, big screen TVs, a gym, a billiards room. They got meals from award-winning chefs and joined luxurious banquets, all on Pablo's dime. The lavish prison gave rise to its other names as well, including Hotel Escobar or Club Medellin. And undoubtedly, the way things was run in the prison sent a message to everyone there by Pablo's grace and prestige. However, as the story usually goes, some people did not like this established democracy and refused to fall in line. Due to a conflict of interest of this nature, Pablo murdered and killed many people. This action directly led to the rise of the Los Pipis, and it also started the series of events that led to the Colombian government raiding La Cartel and led to Pablo Escobar, Big Escape. The evening of the Big Escape, the Colombian army arrived at Pablo Escobar prison to escort him out. However, Pablo's hand-picked prison guards pointed their weapons at them and demanded that they leave because they was trespassing. And under Pablo's agreement with the government, that was technically true. However, the army would not leave. Instead of storming the prison, they sent in the Vice Secretary of Justice, and the prison director also helped him to try to persuade Pablo to come out. And as always, Pablo's first tried reasoning with the men. He might have even offered them a bribe to make it all go away so he could continue his lavish life behind bars. But when both men refused to concede, things quickly escalated. Shortly after negotiations broke down, Pablo tied up both of the men. They acted as if they was insurance policies. They actually was the policy that Pablo Escobar needed to get out alive, because he knew that if he had both men tied up, there was no way the army would come storming in. First, the lights went out. The Colombian army got anxious. Their trigger fingers started twitching because they realized that the battle started. But they still had two important people in the prison tied up. Once everything descended into darkness, Pablo Escobar calmly grabbed the men and led them through the escape route he built during the construction phase. A rigged, weakly mortared wall aided their escape into the night. During the 12 hours it took for the army to finally realize that they'd been tricked and bamboozled by Pablo Escobar and his men, they finally made it back to his mansion. They swam in his pool and smoked cigars while the explosions and the combinations of the soldiers died at the prison. And he left knowing that he tricked the Colombian government once again. So as of right now, Pablo Escobar is a free man. And this will conclude this episode of The Big Escape. But trust me, there's way more to this story. Pablo Escobar is a polarizing figure with hours long stories and trials and tribulation that he endured when he was on the lam. But like I always say, my thoughts is Pablo Escobar is one crazy man and one hell of a criminal. He made it extremely hard for the government to catch him. They had to call in reinforcements from the United States Army, and as time passed, I'll be bringing you guys that footage and that video as well. Get into the comments section. Let me know which case you guys would like us to do next. But like always, this is The Big Escape.